want to thank all of the candidates that are here today, and I would just like to introduce, I'm Michelle Taylor. I'm the Executive Director of the Terrace and District Chamber of Commerce. It is my pleasure to introduce Tom Keller, who will welcome us with his remarks.
Thank you, Michelle. Hello, and thank you to all those that have joined us live today and those watching the recording. My name is Tom Keller, and I am the President of the Terrace and District Chamber of Commerce. Firstly, we would like to respectfully acknowledge we are conducting this forum on the traditional unceded territory of the Kitsumkalum and Kitselas as a part of the Tsimshian Nation. We are honored to live and work and learn together on this territory. It is wonderful to see 4 candidates for such an important role. Our City Council can and does direct and shape our beautiful community. As our community continues to grow and deal with new complex challenges, the new and complex challenges facing us, it is important to have leadership in place and strong leadership. We live in a diverse community with diverse opinions. These opinions are what will get us forward because of the depth within them. So I hope we can all come together tonight respectfully and look to grow from tonight's All Candidates Forum. Now I would like to formally introduce our timekeeper, Michelle Taylor, Executive Director of the Terrace and District Chamber of Commerce, and the one that keeps the heart beating most of the time. And finally, Sarah Zimmerman, Executive Director of Communications with the Coast Mountain College, and our moderator tonight. I will pass it to Sarah.
Thank you so much, Tom. I'm really happy to be here. It's always fun to be part of chamber events, and municipal politics is something that I'm really excited and interested in. So I'm really excited to be here today. What I'd like to do now is just give our candidates and the folks at home an overview of the rules and procedures for tonight. My role is largely just to keep the conversation going using the questions that have been submitted by folks in the public. So tonight candidates are joining us via Zoom, and we'll be introducing them shortly, and they'll be introducing themselves to you as well. This forum is being recorded and will be made available on the City of Terrace website on their elections information page. I suspect that'll take until about tomorrow to get that happening, or the next little bit, but shortly it'll be up there. Each candidate is allotted 2.5 minutes to make an opening statement. The order of these statements was determined earlier today by an advanced draw and are in my notes. Thank you, Michelle, for that. And the candidates are asked not to interrupt other candidates during the opening or the closing statements. During the Q&A period, questions have been provided prior to the forum and were sorted into themes, and we'll be giving candidates at least 3 questions each, but we do have a lot of questions that came in that we received this afternoon. So we'll do our very best to get a variety of questions in there and cover as many topics as possible. In the past, we've sometimes taken a break around 8 o'clock, but it seems that in the virtual world, most of the time people want to just keep going. So I think unless people really are desperate for a break at 8 o'clock, we'll carry on until we've gotten through as many questions as possible. Rebuttals are provided to each of the candidates should you wish to comment on another candidate's answer. And so each candidate, you have 2 rebuttals instead of the old-fashioned rebuttal card that we would have used in the live version of these All Candidates forums. You will be using the raise your hand function to use a rebuttal card. Our trusty timekeeper, Michelle, will be keeping track of how many rebuttals you've used, because I may forget, so I'll look to Michelle to remind me. And you have 1 minute to use your rebuttal card. You can certainly use those rebuttal cards cleverly if you wish to cover both the topic that you're rebutting and any other topic you can squeeze in within a minute if you so wish. If applicable, I have the dubious distinction of ensuring that questions are directed to the appropriate candidate. If necessary, questions may be directed by the moderator to other candidates to ensure balance. Like I said, there's been a lot of questions that have come in on common themes. So if folks out there don't hear the exact wording of their question, it's quite likely that there were 4 or 5 questions that kind of pose the same thing, and we're trying to get that across as best as possible. I won't be reading any questions that might be inappropriate or offensive or derogatory or that would lack integrity to the candidate or to the Chamber's reputation. So, but honestly, we have pretty good questions. People have been really respectful in the process. So I don't think we'll have that problem. I will also rule out of any order anybody who attempts to use the meeting as a platform for expressing point of view on specific issues. We're here to try to have the moderated all candidates forum. You've got, and candidates have the opportunity in their opening and close to speak to any topic and the rebuttals. You also have 2 minutes, answers to questions, limited to 1 minute. So you have 1 minute for your answers to every question, but you have 2 minutes for your closing statements at the end, and we'll go in reverse order from the order that we do the opening statements. Also in my notes down below. Thank you, Michelle. The timer will warn each candidate to how much time is remaining, but do candidates keep your eye on Michelle, because she will communicate to you when your time is ticking down. We may not get through all the submitted questions. Do you want to go through them? There's a 1 minute warning. Well, you start at 1 minute, so there will be a 30-second warning. You've got your Vanna White sign there, 30-second warning. What's your next warning? 15 seconds. And then do you go red? Stop. Okay, so when you see stop, I will intervene and you'll have to stop. So, but it's, everybody, don't feel too much pressure. You're usually pretty good at being able to get it. And I have a ton of respect for all of you putting yourselves out there. So it's hard to answer a question in just 1 minute. If we don't get through all the submitted questions, we do encourage the members of the public to reach out to the candidates directly. I think most of you have a Facebook page presence or some other way of folks getting to reach out to you. And now I'd like to introduce our candidates for the 2021 City of Terrace by-election for City Councillor. In alphabetical order, we have Mr. Dave Gordon. Dave, can you wave to us so people know who you are? There you go. We've got Mr. Alex Petrella. There's Alex. Mr. Amandeep Singh Sani. Did I say that right, Amandeep?
Yes, you said right. It's Amandeep Singh Sani.
Perfect. And Ms. Jolie Viveros. So we will begin with our opening statements, and by previous draw, we'll be going with Jolie first, followed by Dave Gordon, followed by Amandeep, and then Alex Petrella. So Jolie, you have 2.5 minutes for your opening statement. Please go ahead.
I'm just gonna be direct, I'm reading. Because I want to get through things quickly. So, hello Terrace, my name is Jolie Viveros and I'm running for a council position for our beautiful city in my hometown. I love our town and I'm passionate about making a difference. Our city has issues that are not going away, and I believe that my voice is different from the voices currently represented on council. When presented with a problem, I choose to dig deep for solutions, and I'm persistent and analytical in my search. I don't have to be the expert on everything, but I think that we need to consult with experts and look at the solutions other people have developed, other places have developed, and investigate to see whether those can be adapted to our current problem. I also understand the value in teamwork, so I'll work together with current council and to work with partners in other governments and organizations to solve our many problems in our city, but also to grow our city. I was born and raised here in Terrace by my Indigenous mother. We are Hazelton, we are Kitselas, and I recognize openly and happily that we are on the Tsimshian territories. I left Terrace for my education. I earned a master's degree, and more recently, I earned a doctorate degree in my field. I'm an audiologist, and at my current business, I own a hearing clinic, and I'm Dr. Rivera's Doctor of Audiology there. If you don't recognize me, you would know my girls if you've been active in the music festival community, because I'm known as the Viveros Girls Mom. I've been active in our church and in our arts community for 15 years at least. I don't think that's going to end anytime soon. My mother is a senior, so I have several generations that I am involved with, and I was always taught to appreciate and love our seniors. So the seniors of our community are also important to me. And I would like to see that we have more accessible facilities for those people, and also for recognizing that our seniors need to live closer to the city core and to all the services that they need, and that our city infrastructure needs to be in place so that they can move around easily. Now, while I love the mountains and the valleys that define our natural environment, we have long been had many mountains and valleys in our economy, and I'd like to smooth those out. We have long relied on industry, and that's great. We can continue doing that, but we also need to build Terrace as a service hub. So we need to smooth out those mountains and those valleys and create a service hub for Terrace, so that we can become the hub that we are for our city.
All right, thank you, Jolie. Right down to the last second. Well done. So our next speaker is Dave Gordon. Dave, if you're ready, you can go ahead. You've got 2.5 minutes.
Thank you, Michelle, Tom, and the Chamber for organizing this forum. And thank you, Sarah, for volunteering to facilitate this important community event. The people of Terrace live, work, and play on the territories of Kitselas and Kitsumkalum nations. I am humbled to have the opportunity to represent the people of Terrace and very much look forward to building respectful and positive relationships with these nations. Terrace is at a crossroads. As we emerge from over 100 years of resource extraction that built the community, we find ourselves no longer fully reliant on the lumber industry, but rather a growing hub for outdoor recreation, arts, and culture, and a community of choice for young people and their growing families. Employment in professional and technical services now drives our local economy. Terrace's First Nations residents and our neighboring communities are finding their voice after a century and a half of cultural genocide and systemic racism. We need to embrace our future potential as a diverse and welcoming hub community. I've got 2 key areas of focus I'm hoping to guide City Council towards making a priority. First, let's roll up our sleeves and get serious about reconciliation with the First Nations peoples and nations we share Terrace and its surrounding lands with. We can start with the relatively simple and very rewarding work of embracing First Nations arts and culture. This will serve to build relationships while we work through the more challenging issues of systemic racism, the overrepresentation of First Nations peoples in our criminal justice system, and of the chronically addicted people living on our streets. Second, let's put a focus on our downtown as the community hub for Terrace. Again, let's start with the relatively simple work of revitalizing the downtown through removing the orphan canopy on the main street and showcasing our heritage buildings. Let's let the light land on our main street again. And let's start the work of revitalizing Brawley Square to a renewed community hub that drives positive traffic into our downtown. Revitalizing our downtown is a pathway to building a safe and vibrant community. I look forward to the opportunity to lead the community work required to build a welcoming, vibrant, and diverse community we're all proud to call home. And I'll always do so with respect and compassion as our foundation values. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dave. Amandeep, you're next. You have 2.5 minutes for your opening statement.
Thank you, Sarah, Michelle, and Tom for arranging this online meeting and giving us an opportunity to connect our fellow residents of City of Terrace. And hello, everyone. Again, this is Amandeep Singh Saini. I was born and raised in beautiful land of 5 rivers we call Punjab, 5 rivers like Punjab, which is derived from that. It's in India, if nobody knows yet. Punjab is a very arable land, and we are known for our farmlands, our mills, and the country life we have. Though we are not we still not that developed, but we are on the track. We Punjabis are known for the early adopters of the modern world. So, born and raised in Punjab, I did my diploma in electronics communication, and then I did my bachelor's in electronics and communication from Punjab itself. Then I went to UK for a brief period. I tried to have my MBA, but certain health issues prevented me from finishing it. So I came back to India, worked in a multinational company called Red Hat. Then after that, I got a chance to move to this beautiful country, Canada, and Canada is home since last 6 years something. And 3 years ago, I got an opportunity to come to this city and connect to this beautiful city's people. And ever since I came here, I'm loving every day over here. The reason I'm running for the city council is that, in my opinion, the governance has some diverse voices as well. So I'm trying to represent those minority voices, as well as hoping to be elected on the merit and to see the city issues we can solve together and help city grow more. I think that's enough for me, and we'll see how it goes. Thank you very much.
Thanks so much, Amandeep. I appreciate that. Our last candidate, Alex Petrella, you'll have the option to go first when we do our closing statements, but you get the last word this time.
Thank you, Sarah, and thank you everybody and the other candidates who put their name forward. Before I start about me, I'm also would like to acknowledge that we are on the unceded territory of the Coast Tsimshian Nation and our direct neighbors, the Kitselas and the Kitsumkalum. I moved here from Germany 12 years ago. I've worked in the automotive industry. I have a chemical engineering degree and an executive MBA. I worked not all over the world, China, Japan, mostly all over Europe and North America. So I come with a lot of international business experience. And 12 years ago, when we decided to move to Canada, we specifically picked a small community because we wanted to raise our son, who was 3 at the time. And a small city is very appealing to do that. Ever since I've been here, I've experienced Terrace to be warm, inviting, welcoming, and always helping each other out. I mean, there are so many stories about, somebody has a disaster, a house burns down, somebody has a severe sickness. The city, the community always comes together. And this is something that I love about this place. And I think it's something that we all want to defend and make sure that it stays that way. Before working for Hatch, which is my current employer, which is a Canadian engineering consultant firm, I worked for Kitimat-Stikine Industrial Development Society, which is a not-for-profit that doesn't exist anymore. And we did studies largely around social impacts that follow on the end of major projects. So we've done a study in Northeast British Columbia, and a lot of these things that we see today when it comes to housing crunches, social issues, crime, etc. This was all in that study 6-7 years ago. And I'm personally concerned that some things that we could address, maybe by asking other communities, getting help from others, to tackle these changes and challenges and going forward in a positive way, is not what we could do. So my slogan, as I have a few signs out there, my slogan is better together. And I truly believe that a diversity of thought on council that includes First Nations, that includes, diverse backgrounds, will help us in the end to find the solutions that we need to really keep the community vibrant with all the challenges that are going to come. $40 billion down the road is the largest investment in the history of this country, private investment. This is massive.
Thank you very much, Alex. Okay. This is where the fun part starts, everybody. I would like to say that it's always a good day on Lakibu territory. I'm very grateful to live on Tsimshian territory as well. And well, we wouldn't be here tonight if reconciliation wasn't a hot topic in our community. And so I think that might be the best place for us to start. And it's something I'd like to give all of the candidates an opportunity to speak to, because I think it's one of the most important topics of this by-election, and certainly the election coming in 2022. So I've got 4 questions here, and we'll go in reverse order from how we started. So Alex, I'll give you the first question, and I wonder what you can tell us about how you would see moving forward with reconciliation, and how that looks to you.
Thanks, Sarah. So within my corporate position, I've been on the Global Diversity and Inclusion Committee for the last 3 years. This role, specifically because we're a Canadian company, very much looks at reconciliation and how do we work and reach out to Indigenous communities where we personally work, but also where we as a business need to do better to hire more diverse backgrounds and really help and support Indigenous people into their engineering careers. We've done a lot of work over the last few years where we raise awareness with Moose Hide campaign, for example. We've done a blanket exercise in our corporate headquarters. And just last year, to celebrate National Indigenous Peoples Day, we created an Indigenous cookbook, which was a huge success. And where we reached out to all of our Indigenous partners across the country. And I would really like to celebrate with that.
Great, thank you. And I think in fairness, we'll just ask the same question to all of the four candidates. Amandeep, you're next on our list. Can you tell us how working towards reconciliation looks to you as a potential councillor on City Council?
Thank you, Sarah. And as Alex has mentioned about the Diversity and Inclusion Committee, interestingly, I have been on the same committee in my organization as well, because as an organization, we think that it's an important thing to have, and diversity as well as inclusiveness has to be on a large scale in every organization, be it a political or economic or commercial organization. We have to acknowledge it. And I personally am in favor of diversity and inclusion, and I hope that when I get elected, I work towards making the social fiber of the city stronger and vibrant. And hope so. That what's in the future, we'll surely find out soon. Thank you.
Thanks, Amandeep. Dave, what does reconciliation look like you from a municipal council perspective?
Thanks, Sarah. Well, as I mentioned in my opening speech, I think we start embracing the arts and culture, which is work that I've already been initiating in Terrace through my role with the Skeena Salmon Art Fest and the TDIA. Getting First Nations art up in town normalizes their culture and makes this town feel like home for our First Nations people. So there's lots of work we can do there. We have some of the best artists in the world living in our region, and they're keen to put their art up in town. I think we should also do some work with integrating Smalleq language wherever we can. It should be on our Welcome to Terrace signs. We could have street signs. In Smalleq, there's a stop sign in Kitsumkalum with the Smalleq word to stop, Gialu, and I think we could have that here in town with no difficulty. I think the council should be reviewing the calls for action for the missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls, and I've been told to stop. That's a long list. I could go on for a while.
Yeah, that's all you get. Thank you so much for that thoughtful response. Jolie, you get the last word on, how City Council and your role on City Council can help, in the realm of reconciliation. What are your perspectives? Oh, you'll have to unmute yourself, Jolie. It's okay, we'll start the timer now.
Thank you very much. So I'll start with some history. Section 35 has been part of our Constitution, and it was directed to including First Nations into Canada, and it's virtually been ignored for 40 years. Bill 41 is a declaration on the rights of Indigenous people and is recognized in UNDRIP, which we should know by now, and the Truth and Reconciliation Commitment. So if we want to know what to do and how to include Indigenous people into our city, we need to ask Indigenous people. So I don't think it's right for the City Council or anybody else outside of the Indigenous community to make decisions about that. We need to talk to them. And I think it needs to be more about arts and culture and language. It has to be about including Indigenous people in our economy. Article 24 says Indigenous individuals have an equal right to the enjoyment of the highest attainable standard of physical and mental health. It states that we shall take necessary steps with a view at achieving progressively the full realizations of this right.
Jolie, sorry, 1 minute.
I'm gonna do it every time.
But you know, predictably, there were a few questions around reconciliation. So I've got one more for each of the candidates, and then we'll move on to the next topic. Jolie, perhaps we'll go back to you. You know, how does it look to strengthen relationships with area First Nations? Drawing on the comments you made around speaking to First Nations to inform the process. So how do you strengthen those relationships and help that along?
I would like to rephrase that from speaking to Indigenous people to speaking with Indigenous people. I think that's often left out. So, you know, we had Section 35, which said we need to engage with Indigenous people. It didn't say how. It's never said how we're to do that, or how we're to include people, or how we're to consult. It says consult. And so different industries and organizations have consulted, but we have no framework for how to do that. And I think that the city can be a leader in that respect and build a framework for how to consult with Indigenous people. And that means meeting with all of the communities. We have Tahltan in the north, we have the Haisla in the south, we have the Haida on the west. We're living on Tsimshian territory, and we have the Giksan. All those communities are all part of us, and they all shop. We're the hub. So we have to engage with all of those communities.
Thank you. Dave, this question says, does the candidate support that staff and elected officials in Terrace should participate in mandatory anti-racism training that would be hosted by local Indigenous peoples?
That's a quick answer. Absolutely. That's an area that we can always learn, even if we've been through the training before and have good relationships with Indigenous people. There's much to learn from that, and it should be imperative part of city council and city staff, and I think should be part of all city staff moving forward.
Thank you. Amandeep, what is your approach to reconciliation with local regional First Nations, given that many nations have different desires and sometimes they are conflicting when it comes to development and other issues in the region? So what would your approach to reconciliation be with the diversity of First Nations that are surrounding the city of Terrace?
Thank you, Sarah. In my opinion, I'll say that any issue can be solved if we sit together and talk to each other, and it can be solved on good terms. But we just need to talk more and sit together more often, which I think we sometimes lack. I'm not saying that we don't do it, but if we encourage people and different communities to sit together and talk about their issues, we can have more solutions whatsoever it is. Any issue, we can solve it. And I think the communication part is missing. So we have to strengthen the communication part within the communities and the city itself, so that we can hear more from the people of diverse communities, and just not the Indigenous. I'll say every other community or minority voice should be heard, and there should be a channel or something, a system be there to have that communication, openly and respectfully to each other. Thank you.
Thank you. Everybody had their second chance, right? Alex, you too?
No, not yet.
Not yet. Okay, I've got one more for you. Sorry about that. I will always make sure that I'm keeping track properly. So this is a question that says, what specific actions will the candidate move forward with reconciliation with local Indigenous communities?
Well, I think the first thing is to reach out to them. This is a dialogue. This is not something where you go in and say, oh, this is what I'd like to do for you. It doesn't work that way. So it's a dialogue. You reach out and says, let's come together. What can we do together? I always like projects. I always like to be hands-on with something, because when you work together, that's the best way of learning each other and how to deal with each other and really experiencing how you communicate and how it flows. And awareness training. When I came to Canada and I saw the conditions that some of the First Nations live in, that was enough awareness for me to know that something isn't going right. And I come from a country where we have done reconciliation for 80 years, you know, with a population that we all know what happened. And there are lots of lessons, and it's a painful path, but it needs to be done. And I think it starts with awareness, and I still think it starts with training, and everything from unconscious bias training to racism, et cetera, et cetera. It needs to be included, there's no doubt.
Thank you very much. We are going to segue a little bit away from this topic, but still on the topic of diversity. There is quite a few questions that were submitted, not just around the issue of Indigenous relations, but also in supporting the diversity of the greater community, and also touching on the topic of communication. And so, Amandeep, I'm going to give you this question first. How would you seek out the views on local issues from members of marginalized groups and bring them to the table? So what ideas would you have around making sure that marginalized groups had the opportunity to bring their ideas to council?
Thank you, Sarah. I think, as I said before, I mentioned it, that there's a lack of communication and lack of those channels which provide the means to communicate to each other. So we need to build up those channels. Some people like to say their opinion openly, some like to keep it secret. I think we have a Facebook page as a city council. We have other pages on Facebook and other social media, but people sometimes just hold them back and don't want to go openly and say something. So we need to have those opinions and channels to provide that facility that people can give their feedback without any hesitation and without any fear or something. So I think I'll go for the development of those channels whatsoever, openly or secretly. I'll try to bring them together on those channels and then have the opinions of every community on board before anything is decided. Thank you. Thank you
very much. The next question, Jolie, I'll ask you. This is on the topic of seeking out views and engaging with people, but this time from members of the LGBTQ2+ community. How do we solicit the views of those folks in that community and bring them to the council table? Oh. Can you unmute?
I thought you guys muted me.
There you go. Okay, we'll start again. So this is about
I didn't get it.
about bringing different views to the table, and how do you see the role of City Council in seeking the views and representing the views of the LGBTQ+ community?
I think it's the same way that we engage with other marginalized groups. We talk to people and we find out, where the issues are, where they're feeling marginalized, why they're feeling marginalized, and what we need to do to bring everybody in as a community. I don't believe in separation, and I don't believe that we should have them and us and all of these things. I think all of us should be able to get together and come to some kind of agreement on what we want and where we want the city to go. Not all of us are always going to get exactly what we want. That's part of living in a community together, but we should be able to find common ground and solve those problems, whatever issues there are. These aren't tough barriers. We're all people. We all people, and we all have loves, and we all have lives, and we all have children, and we all have all those kinds of things that we share as a community. We focus on those things together, we should be able to figure out a way to move forward.
Thank you, Jolie. The next question is for Dave Gordon. Many people have moved to Terrace from different countries, and the community, what role does the city play in making our community more welcoming for newcomers to Canada and to Terrace?
Thanks, Sarah. I think the city plays a key role in making everybody welcome. And one of the key community partners that we have that excels in that work is Skeena Diversity. So if presented with the opportunity of being on council and facing that challenge, I would approach the folks at Skeena Diversity to guide us through that process. It's work they've been doing quite successfully for a number of years.
And over to you, Alex. What are your views on being able to increase the visibility and support for the LGBTQ plus community in Terrace?
Well, I'm certainly no expert in LGBTQ, but I live by the golden rule. This has been, my Catholic belief to live by the golden rule, and this is very simple. Treat others the way you want to be treated. And this is how I approach almost not almost every person that I meet in life. Treat me the way I treat you, and vice versa. And when it comes to marginalized groups and people in the community, we have to hear what the concerns are. We have to understand what the issues are. I cannot sit here and say I know exactly what the problem is, because I don't. So maybe we just do, a farmers market councilor meeting. All the councilors are at the market. I don't know, open, advertise for it and ask us questions. Let's come together, right? Instead of, inviting them always to the chamber, why don't we go out into the community and present us and be there and have them approach us, right?
Great, thanks for those specific ideas. It's always blows my mind, all of the cool ideas that people come up with at these all candidates forums, and just from so many different perspectives. It's really one of my favorite things. We're going to move on to the topic of affordability in Terrace. I've got a question here for Amandeep. How will you work towards solving the affordable housing crisis in Terrace?
Thank you, Sarah. And when I got elected, I think we need to approve more housing projects, and as well as we need to give an opportunity to the house owners of the city to, if they have the potential or they have the space to build their more, say, basements, so that they can have extra income as a rental if they want to. Right now, I think, as I mentioned before, previously to this question in standard as well, city wasn't ready when it came to the influx of people. And I think we still not got late that much. We still can, work towards it and have the housing more affordable for the people who come from different cities. Right now, if I see that the rents are almost equal to the down south, because demand is more and the supply is less. So I think as a city member, I would be, working towards approving more housing projects and as well as rentals. Thank you.
Thank you. Still on the theme of housing, Jolie, what kind of ideas do you have to ensure that the housing crisis in Terrace is addressed? What role would you see a municipal councillor being able to play in terms of the housing crisis that we seem to have in Terrace these days? Your mic again. It's okay. I forget all the time. You're not alone. You're not alone.
So first of all, the housing crisis is not just Terrace, it's across the nation. So we have to deal with what we have. But I've looked at what other cities have done, and I looked particularly at Richmond had done. And they had used their bylaws, the power of bylaws, to get developers to contribute to a fund that would fund low housing development. And they would also make sure that when you made a housing project, that a certain number of them were low income or lower income housing. So I think the city has that kind of power, and they're just not using it to force these kind of things to happen. So you can have they had a 60 portion development, and a certain portion of them had to be for low income. And that's just a way to get things moving and fair for everybody.
Great. Still on the topic of housing, but in terms of being able to attract, professionals to Terrace, some folks in the business community have noticed, I've noticed that, you may offer a job to somebody from out of town, but when they realize the vacancy rate and the cost of rent and the cost of owning, it becomes a barrier for them to move here. So Dave, I'm gonna pose this question to you. How do we address that in terms of recruiting professionals to Terrace and knowing where we're at right now with the cost of living?
It's a tough one in Terrace because the housing prices are really driven by national and even international markets, something we don't have a whole lot of control over. Attracting professionals is usually involving bringing people up that have fairly robust incomes, steady incomes. And our housing prices, though high by Terrace standards, are still well below the national average. And I hope they don't get much higher, but it's heading in the wrong direction at the moment. So I think the city's efforts really need to be towards income-based housing and subsidized housing. And I note that the city and housing partners are doing it, making progress on that issue with 2 new developments being built in the downtown core coming up. Housing is an issue that I'm not that familiar with in terms of the municipality's role. And I look forward to learning more about that should I be elected.
Thank you. On that topic, much of the funding for housing does sit with the province, and municipalities have to work closely with the province. Alex, how do you see yourself working with folks from government to advocate for further investment in housing in terraces, and how would you see yourself as an advocate for Terrace in that respect?
Well, to me, that ties a little bit back to the revenue sharing agreement and the model that we're trying to achieve with the province. This region has some of the largest investments, in industry in the country. And the BC government already acknowledged that they're going to work towards a revenue sharing model with us. And that would hopefully also lead into, can we do something on the housing? You said housing is, we have to work with other levels of government, but we can also, what we do, and we can hopefully do that with other levels of government, is look at bylaws when it comes, how can we, do more densification? I grew up in Europe. On a city the size of Terrace, we usually have twice the size of people in Germany, right? So because when you look at housing, you build more roads, sewer, water, etc., everything all of a sudden costs more. So the city has more infrastructure to look after. So you really have to balance how you want to grow the housing, and I think densification and maybe strata models is one of the solutions.
Thank you, Alex. All right. Moving away from housing, we're going to go a little deeper into the downtown area where there's been a lot of homelessness. It's no secret that if you walk downtown, we're seeing a lot of, unsavory behavior that hasn't been a huge part of our community for a long time and seems to be getting worse. And much talk in the community about the effects of that on the downtown area and our community as a whole and how to address it. So these are wide-ranging topics. There's no right or wrong answer, but we're really curious to see what folks on this panel have to say about that. I've got a question here. This one will go to, it's addressed to Dave Gordon. What role, if any, does the local business community have in cleaning up the mess in the downtown core? And what are your ideas for revitalization?
Well, I have specific ideas on what we can do in the downtown core. As I mentioned at the top of the meeting, revitalizing the main street by removing the canopy, which is a fully grantable project, and concepts are already underway for that. It has the potential to improve that street and bring the light back onto the main street, improve the facades of the buildings that are there. We also need to revitalize Brawley Square and attract positive traffic into our downtown. If we can imagine Brawley Square with a couple of food trucks and a coffee wagon on it, there's a couple hundred people sometimes lined up with the food trucks during the week. Let's get that traffic right into town. And while those folks are lined up 100 deep, maybe they'll go down to the coffee shop and get a coffee, and let's get that positive traffic back into downtown.
Thank you. Jolie, somebody had a question for you. It says, given that locating the Kassan shelter on Lake Else has led in part to a shocking increase in the number of homeless people congregating downtown, and a deterioration in the livability of that area. Do you think the shelter's in the right location, and what do you propose for next steps?
Okay, so here's the issue. People always want to hide the problem. The problem's not going to go away. So you can hide it, you can move it, and you can move this shelter here, and you can move that shelter there, but the underlying problem continues to stay there. And that's not going to get fixed by moving people or shuffling people out of eyesight. It's still going to be a problem. So what we need to do is figure out some kind of addiction services program in this city, and it has to be a high priority. It has to get done. We can't continue to ignore it. We can't continue to just shove it under a rug. So it's not enough to just move shelters around or hide people away. There have been studies done that show that for every $1 that you spend on drugs treatment, you save $4 to $7 in crime and justice costs. If you include healthcare in that situation, you can save $12 in healthcare costs and crime and justice costs for every $1 that you put into drug addiction services. So we just can't ignore it anymore. We need to be pushing the province to get it done here for us.
Alex, there's a growing concern around some that empty storefronts are negatively affecting downtown businesses, litter, gatherings in doorways and general unkeep, for example. What's your position on a vacancy tax, for example, a storefront not being occupied for 12 months or more? That's a pretty specific question.
You mean the vacancy then being levied on the owner of the building? I would not support that, very simply because the owner of the building, I'm pretty sure is trying to find solutions to find a tenant in that space. And when you're specifically talking about a 4800 block, Brawley Square right next to it, to me that's a broken window. And whoever who knows the broken window theory knows that if you don't fix the first broken window, the second one will appear right after. And to me, Brawley Square has been a broken window in this community for at least 2 or 3 years, and it needs to be fixed. Because once we have that fixed, and I totally agree with Dave, there's a few other things that we could do downtown. That's when we will also see positive movement coming back, and that's when businesses will see this as an opportunity to do business in a way that is conducive and supportive, and for to attract families and I speak to women, they don't want to go there after 6 in the evening anymore, and that's just not tenable. I think the situation is really bad downtown, and we have to solve it.
Thanks, Alex. Amandeep, what is your approach to the worsening issues of homelessness, mental health issues, and addiction that seem to be more prevalent, particularly in the downtown area?
Thank you, Sarah. Basically, what I've seen in 3 years, homelessness grew much more than when I came here. And as Jolie mentioned, that shuffling the shelters will not be a solution, but building more shelter will help. First of all, to have them some place to go to. Second thing, I think we always focus on what happens after they are addicted and how to de-addict them, but we sometimes forget to focus on the issue, how they get addicted and why they are getting addicted, or what's the reason for their homelessness. I think we should go to that root as well and solve those issues so that people are not homeless at the first place. And second thing, we have to have not just de-addiction programs or something. We need to have something that can encourage people to learn skills so that they can get employment, so that they can be a part of the community and earn their bread themselves.
I have to cut you off there, Amandeep. Sorry, we ran out of time on that question. Alex, you've raised your hand. This is to use a rebuttal. Let me just double check. 1 minute for a rebuttal. Is that right, Michelle? Yes, you've got a minute.
Yeah, a rebuttal, not in the sense that I disagree with anything that was already being said, but maybe more to emphasize. I think drug addiction and solving it starts with drug addiction rehab. We need a rehab center in the region. We have I think the furthest one or the closest one is Prince George. we not just only have this issue in Terrace, we also have it in Prince Rupert. We have a ghost town 150 kilometers north of us in Kitselas, with houses, with everything. And I'm really just throwing it out there. Have we ever had a dialogue with the province to turn Kitselas into a world-class treatment facility? Because so many things, so often what I hear is, you fall back into addiction when you fall back into your your peers, the people that you know from your addiction times, etc., in your roles. So I think a place that is a bit more away would help to really, really work for people to work through their addiction and then find that footing in life.
Thanks. Kitselas, hey? I have never heard that as an idea before. You just kind of blew my mind a little bit. Okay, that's super interesting. We may come back to this topic a little bit later. Those were the questions that were submitted, but it's clear that this is a hot topic, and it's got a lot of layers. Hey guys, there's mental health issues, there's addictions issues, there's capacity, right? It's no secret, I live right behind the Kitselas shelter, so I see every day the increasing demand for their services, and feeling like they've maybe grown out of that facility a little bit. And so how do we address the increasing needs and the needs that we have? It's a huge question. But we're going to switch gears. Actually, can I invent a new part of this, Michelle? I'm going to. This is what we're going to do. Brawley Square. Everybody has 30 seconds. Michelle, can you do 30 seconds? Brawley Square is the topic. Your crazy ideas for Brawley Square to make it more vibrant and less what it is right now. Jolie, over to you. You've got 30 seconds. What would you do with Brawley Square? Don't forget to turn your mic on.
It's on. I'm leaving. I'm not turning it off. Okay, so Brawley Square. So we have this. We've been telling people forever that we have issues at Brawley Square. Brawley Square looks fine. It's pretty. You can put the reason they shut down Brawley Square had a lot to do with who was hanging out there. And if we go back to the problem of solving these underlying problems that are leading to homelessness and leading to street problems, a lot of those problems will go away. So that's just a cover fix. I don't think that's going to solve anything. Just making the Brawley Square prettier, making the town prettier is not going to fix the underlying problem.
Over to you, Alex. What would you do with Brawley Square? So, and for anybody who's not aware, Brawley Square is on the corner of Lake Elsa Avenue and give me the cross street. Is that Emerson? Emerson. Thank you.
Yes.
So it's had some development, used to be an SO site years ago, has been remediated. It's changed hands a couple times. There's been different arrangements with who can maintain that area. Alex, over to you. What would you do with Brawley Square?
Well, I actually like the initial idea that they've presented with having a food ability there, maybe giving or a vibrant and growing food truck businesses in town, and a place where they can park their vehicle, and then put some green space and seating, etc., around it. I don't think it's pretty. I don't think it looks good, Julie. I'm sorry, I have to disagree on that one. I think it's ugly, and I think we need to pretty it up and make it a home for people to sit.
All right. Amandeep, what would you do with Brawley Square, with that corner that has not a lot of development on it right now?
I think if I had the decisive power, I'll again go to the community what they want. Instead of proposing them that I have this idea, I'll ask the community what they want to do to develop it, or what's convenient for them. And that's the best idea, because we always, I think most of the time, we propose the solutions from our own perspective that, okay, I think this is the solution, but the people who are closer to that area, people who actively go there or pass by, they need to tell that. Sorry.
And that's all we've got with 30-second buzzer round. Dave Gordon, over to you.
Thanks, Sarah. I've been working on this issue for a while. So first of all, we need to get it out of the hands of Imperial Oil, and let's live in a utopian world where they're going to sell the property to the city for a community level price, and we can get some grants to revitalize the space. Let's get world-class artists like Roy Vickers to paint the back wall of the Royal bank and let's put food trucks on it. Let's get some fantastic First Nations sculptures on that place and make it a world-class destination that tourists want to come to. I think it could be an iconic feature in Terrace.
29.5 seconds, Dave, like you practiced that or something. Okay. Thanks for that. I'm going to come up with, have I been talking for 30 seconds without nobody knowing what I'm saying? I was impressed, Dave, that you did that in 29.5 seconds, like you practiced or something. And then I told lots of hilarious jokes. You all missed out. They were funny, though, I'm telling you. We might do another little one of those little buzzer questions later on here. We're at 3 minutes to 8. How's everybody doing? Do you need a stretch? Are you good? We can carry on. I think if we take a break, we'll lose everybody and it'll be super boring for the replay. So let's just keep going, shall we?
And Sarah, I just want to make a comment from your timer's perspective. I really had to be on my game there to make sure I'm pressing the button and showing you the right little 15 seconds and stop. So that was great. Thank you.
I appreciate you, Michelle. Thanks for adjusting to my crazy idea. That was fun though. It was kind of like doing some jumping jacks, and now we're on to economic development, guys. You excited about this one? Alex, somebody had a specific question for you. Despite long months of meetings and public forums, the NSD Inland Port proposal is still winding its way through City Hall. How do you envision speeding up the development process? Or if you don't think that's a thing, that's up to you. And the uncertainty that these delays bring people wanting to invest in Terrace. It's hard to frame these questions, folks, because they come from specific, they come from a human who has a specific view on things. So that's how it was written. How do you envision speeding up the development process and the uncertainty that these delays bring people wanting to invest in Terrace?
Well, development process in many smaller communities is still done kind of the old-fashioned way, right? Piece of paper, you go in, it gets stamped off, it goes from hand to hand. The first step needs to be that it needs to be done electronically. Submit drawings electronically, have everything online so that the process is very clear and the timelines for the process where what you want to develop are very, very clear. That we're not running into bottlenecks that are often, staff or other developments are ahead of your timeline. Once we have this all online, and there is many tools, and I do know from inside that the City of Terrace is already looking at that, how to modernize their development process. That is certainly the first step. And the second step to me is, what's the strategic plan? What's our goal as a plan where the community wants to go? The region has large investments. We are a service hub. How do we grow the service hub? What services do fit into that strategy? Because at the end of the day, those strategies needs to go. Sorry.
I know. Because I want to hear what else you have to say.
Yeah. I'll say it later.
It's okay. There's lots of questions about the inland port, so never fear. You all get an opportunity. Let's see here. This one is for Jolie. Do you have any concerns about City Council's decision to change the Kenny State's official community plan and to change the zoning of Old Skeena sawmill lands to permit the development of an inland port in Terrace?
Yeah, I do.
What are your concerns, and how will you propose to advocate to address these concerns while on council?
Yeah, so my issue has been with that port is that it goes against the official community plan, and the official community plan is pretty much a document that the city is obliged to follow. So I think if they're going to do this thing, and it's going to go, from what we've seen, it's going to go, we need to have some mitigating factors on that. We need to have things like, how are we going to protect that Kenny crossing? How are we going to have another overpass over that railway crossing when we have another huge set of railway tracks separating two parts of our city? So we also have to decide whether, what the economic benefit to our city is. So once we've established those kinds of things, a lot of the success of that port was established based on things happening at the Skeena Industrial site. Things aren't happening at the Skeena Industrial site. So I'm not convinced that it was the way to do things. I think that the entire city should have been included.
Thank you for that. Sorry you ran out of time.
That's okay, I always will.
Dave, are you concerned about the proposed inland port plans to handle it? No, this is saying dangerous goods. I'm going to qualify this. I don't know if they're allowed to have dangerous goods there. No, Tom's shaking his head. I don't actually think they can store dangerous goods there. But are you, it says bulk diesel and LNG containers. Can they do that at the inland port? I actually don't know if that's permitted.
That's part of the bylaws that they're working on changing. It's currently heavy industrial, and if it was able to go through the way it's structured currently, they would be allowed to, but that's some of the wording that has slowed this down, because we only have a set amount of structures, small industrial, light industrial, heavy industrial. They're working on a middle ground. I don't know the exact details, but that's part of what they're working on, is trying to correct that.
Let me reframe this question for you, Dave.
You bet.
Do you have concerns that there could be potential for dangerous goods to be coming through the inland port? And what sort of proposal would you have to mitigate those dangers?
I don't have a lot of concerns in that regard. We already have diesel, a wide array of fuels coming through our community. We have propane tanks stored right in our on the CN line, right beside the active CN line. We have bulk diesel storage in the downtown area. I am a bit concerned about the rising traffic of potentially dangerous goods through our town, and the length of trains and the risk that brings to the community. I don't see that being a really significant issue at the inland port. It's a small section of rail line completely separated from the main line, and the potential for a catastrophic accident there is, I think, very low, especially in comparison to the potential that may occur right on the main line, where we have the Sandy overpass just east of that. We have 14 tracks wide that's always full of a wide array of goods, some of them quite combustible.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Amandeep, how do you propose to maximize the positive impacts of industrial development or development in Terrace, and minimize the negative impacts of large industrial projects in the area? What role would City Council play in maximizing the positives and minimizing the negatives of industrial development?
Thank you, Sarah. Yeah, I think I thought about it before when I came here, and I saw that most of the industries either pivoted to the gas and oil or the Kitimat industry, or we are pivoted to the lumber industry only. So there's nothing else almost. We lack in that kind of industry. So I think being a city member and as a whole city council, we should encourage diversity in the industry as well, so that we have diverse kind of talent over here. And that will, like, right now we are just in the echo chamber of two industries only, and that limits our talent over here as well. So we need to think about, say we propose or we develop a plan to have an electric like sustainable energy farm, say wingless turbines mounted all over the city or around the areas, which have minimal impact on environment because they don't have blades, they're vertical ones. Those kind of farms.
Stop there, Amandeep. I'm sorry. That also sounds fascinating.
It does.
There's 1 minute answers. We got to move to 1.5. We do have a rebuttal from Dave and then from Jolie. Dave, what's on your mind?
So one of the things I think that the city has to do with this development, and ideally ahead of the development, is do the street improvements on Keith before the project gets going, if that's technically and financially possible. That's a really tough section currently for pedestrians and cyclists to get through that block. And if we leave that streetscape improvement that I've seen conceptual drawings of with a separated sidewalk and trees and bike lanes, we leave that to after the project, once it's in construction. We don't want to tear up Keith Avenue and disrupt the construction, and then when it gets into operations, do we want the truck traffic that's going into the inland port to go through a construction zone? I don't see that really being that viable. So let's see what we can do to get that investment in place ahead of construction and operation.
Jolie, over to you. You had a rebuttal on this topic.
Two things. One was any kind of LNG products that were proposed to travel through that port were supposed to be from a potential smaller LNG project that was going to be in the Skeena Industrial lands, and it hasn't happened. So those products aren't going to come through. Those lands have been sitting there for a very long time. Nothing's happening. So I don't see how that's going to be an issue for the inland port. Also, this is to Dave. The trees and developments and the improvements on Keith were related to the official community plan, which was Keith Estates. So you're looking at two different projects. You can have the inland port, or you can have Keith Estates, and you can't have both. So if you're going to have the inland port, then maybe it's the onus is on the developer to develop that area for that kind of traffic, and not on the city.
I do believe that there is another hearing. Has the last hearing happened on this project, or is there another one coming up? Tom, Michelle, do you know? Is it upcoming? Oh, see, I've stumped you all. I might do a little Googling.
No, I do.
I want to say there's one more, but I'm drawing blanks.
No.
Can I speak?
Okay, just 1 sec. Yeah, the first and second reading were held a few weeks ago, and there'll be a public hearing on June the 14th, which will be on the Monday. Following that, then there will be an opportunity again for council to have its third reading. There's some other procedures that the city has to go through once we have that public hearing, and so there's a few more things that the city needs to do with the public to get to that next step, which is of course that third reading.
Were the first and second reading together at the same time?
Yes, they typically are, Jolie.
They typically are not supposed to be first and second together, but okay, that's this way the city does it. Shouldn't, but that's okay. We'll work on that.
That's might be my favorite quip of the night. We'll work on that. I love it. Oh, sorry, no more rebuttals on that topic? Okay. On the topic of economic development, though, with LNG right in our backyard, Alex Petrella, how do we best make sure that we're getting our piece of the pie in Terrace?
Well, some of the train has left the station, to be perfectly honest with you, because those engagements with the owners happened years ago. What we can do now is really look at the supply chain of what happens in the service sector for an existing operational energy facility, because they need everything, right? There's maintenance, there's shops, there's metal works, etc., etc. We will be able to grow our supply chain, and that brings me back a little bit to, I wanted to rebut on the earlier discussions on the inland port. When we talk about reconciliation, we often talk about social issues and all that, but to me, reconciliation to a large part is also economic reconciliation. And anything that we can do to grow our supply chain and an inland port that supports jobs that are not professional, we're talking heavy equipment operator, we're talking warehouse staff, etc., etc., I think would be helpful.
Okay. Dave Gordon, what other ways can we grow our economy in the Northwest? We hear a lot of talk around LNG. Alex is saying maybe the train has left the station on that one. What other opportunities do you see Terrace having from an economic development perspective?
We have to be open to partnering with the major industries that are in our neighboring communities, Rio Tinto, LNG Canada, the port, and all the businesses that are engaged with the port. We're, all of those businesses in one way or another have run through Terrace, and positioning ourselves as the service and supply community for those industries, even though some people may not like where the industries are or what they're founded upon. To ignore those industries really is is at our peril. So I think building relationships with them, putting our industrial lands at the airport to best use. And I think the inland port's an example of how we're capitalizing on an opportunity to work with the major developments in the Port of Prince Rupert and bring some of that economic activity to Terrace.
Alex, you've got your hand raised. Thanks, Dave, for those comments.
Yeah, just a comment on that, and Dave is absolutely right. We all know that about 20% of Rio Tinto staff lives in Terrace, and we can certainly expect the same thing once LNG Canada is in operation. That a lot of the families and people will choose Terrace as their home. So anything that we can do in Terrace, you know, to up our game on housing, on infrastructure, on making it a vibrant and livable city for families to come, will ultimately bring us people that have good income, although they work in Kitimat, who choose to live in Terrace. We can expect the same.
Jolie, what are your thoughts on diversifying the economy a little bit and other areas that you see for opportunity for Terrace?
Yeah, I think that we, in some ways, Dave is right, and that we do have to embrace our industries. We can't rely only on industries anymore. That's just not the way things are going to work. And so we have to truly diversify our economy. And that means bringing in more businesses, more small business. We were just discussing all these closed shops. And so we made it make it easier for people to be in business and to be in small business. I am a small business owner. And I think that's the heart of what is going to be in a community, because these small businesses contribute back into the community because it's ours. These large industries, well, they don't really care about us. They care in as much as they have to throw something back at us to make us happy with them. But I'm not entirely sure that they provide the same kind of kickback into the community that our small businesses do. Our small businesses have inherently contributed to many things and the development. And they have a heart for our community, the way each of us has a heart for our community. So that's going to be our diversification. We need to be that service hub. We need to be where everybody comes to get things done. The hospital is going to do that for us.
All right. Amandeep, you get the last word on economic development. What kind of ideas do you have in terms of you know, improving economic development in Terrace, and where do you see opportunities for us?
Thank you, Sarah. And I was already mentioning those when I got out of the time previously. And yeah, we need to look at the different options so we can have different industries, small or bigger, that's a different thing. But we need to have more diverse, say, technical service industry, or as I said, the electricity production with the bladeless vertical electricity farms, etc. As well as we need to look at what we have already, like say lumber industry. Can we have some industry built around that who can support and improve the lumber industry, so that we have a diversity in that as well? So like everything is getting automatic these days. Can we bring something computer or some IT industry into the lumber industry and make it more efficient and more you know, robust in this area? We need to attract people, as well as we need to look at the neighboring city, that what we can help to improve there, as well as we need to attract those people to come shopping here. So we need to have more shops around the city. Thank you.
Thank you, Amandeep. That's great. This is way easier than when I'm on the stage at the R.E.M. Lee Theater, where I have this big long hook and I actually have to, like, I'm joking. I don't. I just asked Nancy Stonearcher to turn off the mic, and that's how it happens. We're actually pretty good. I really appreciate this. The one thing I do miss is having a live audience to ask questions. So we're really grateful to all those people that did submit a lot of questions. I think we had 41 questions or something around there submitted. So I've been trying to get through them as much as possible. We're at 8:16. How's everybody doing? Good? Okay. We're technically here until 9. I don't think we're going to make it till 9. I think we're going to end a little bit early. I want to ask you a few questions around infrastructure. And I'd like to check in with Michelle. Michelle, you're awesome. You're so good on the signs. They've only been upside down a couple times, but we can still read them. It's great that they're color coded and the numbers are very large. Can you tell us where we're at for rebuttals? I know Mr. Petrella has used a couple on economic development, so you might be out of luck, mister.
Yeah.
Dave Gordon, you've used at least one, and so has Jolie.
Mhm.
I think you have
Worth
two.
it.
Is my count right, Michelle?
You're right on the mark there, Sarah.
Okay. And Alex had 2, not 3, right?
He's used to, yeah.
Okay, great. See, my counting on the fly works. I'm a words person, not a numbers person. So I'm very grateful to have the support of other people in making sure that my simple arithmetic is going well. We are going to lighten things up a little bit, and I'm going to ask all 4 of you, a totally random question that has no theme, that came kind of out of the blue. And we're just going to ask them the way they are. Miss Viveros, that's who it was addressed to. Ms. Viveros, how would you manage the public side of being an elected official? You can have a whole minute.
A whole minute.
A whole minute.
Public side.
It's not the buzzer thing, because 30 seconds isn't really enough.
No, that's a big, I don't know what kind of question that is.
How would you manage the public side of being on council?
The public side of being on council. I don't understand what the issue is. I mean, it's the same way the same way you conduct your life in any other way, right? You have to be accessible to the public, but you know, ultimately there do have to be some boundaries set for what you can do, because you can't work for the city 24/7. So understandably, there will be some boundaries, but I would be very open to people contacting me through the appropriate channels about their issues. I don't have a problem with being the public. I got a slightly big personality at times, so I don't have a problem being up in front for people. That's not an issue for me.
Amandeep, I think this one suits you well based on some of the answers that you've given earlier this evening. But how will you make sure that we have active communication with members of the community after this by-election?
I was mentioning these things before, that we need to build more channels, say suggestion boxes, or say Facebook channels or groups where we can have those suggestions. If somebody want to go public and give some comment, that's okay. But if somebody wants to remain behind the curtain and say some things, or give feedback, or give opinion, or have idea, then they need to have those channels. And there are many avenues we can go with that. So once we are there, we can explore that. The suggestion boxes can be there so that somebody can just post, or on certain topics we can have a time window, as you have done with this meeting, that you give a time window that you can submit your questions. We can have those as well. Again, we can have that, as Alex said, we need to make it electronic or more, so that it's more efficient and more transparent. So we need to work on the transforming those channels to the more IT related or more electronic way. That's what my thought is, and I hope everybody agrees.
Thank you very much. Dave, this question is about climate change. Told you, there's some random questions in here that don't fit a theme, so I'm going to ask you it anyway. Given the acknowledged gravity of the requirements for action to limit the effects of climate change over the next decade, what steps do you see the city taking to ramp up a municipal contribution to, I guess, minimizing the effects of climate change?
Well, clearly this is one of the most pressing issues of our generation. And I admit I'm not up to speed in terms of the city's current policies and procedures and plans to address climate change. I know Tara, for instance, has been working on this since her start at the city some 10, 15 years ago. So I would look forward to hearing from her or her replacement in terms of where the city's at the moment. I do struggle, though, with the role that a municipality can play in affecting climate change, given the small scale of infrastructure and assets that the city owns and can directly control in terms of emissions, especially given the time for staff to develop policies and track them and implement them, do the public feedback process. It could be quite time consuming, and our staff are quite overworked, and I have to stop.
I'm so glad I switched to the gallery view because I had you on the other view at one point and Michelle was not on the screen, and then I wasn't sure if I could see her numbers. So I'm really grateful that
Yeah.
many different options for people in the Zoom world for this. Alex, this is a question. Does the candidate, does Alex Petrella, support a living wage to be paid to workers in Terrace? That includes retail, service, and food industry. Now, the caveat being that the City of Terrace does not set wages, but people are interested in your perspective. Where do you stand on the topic of a living wage for retail workers or minimum wage earners?
Well, as you rightfully said, this is not something that the City of Terrace will have to, can govern. There's no fiduciary duty or policy power that the city has. But we're advocates, we're in the public eye. So quite frankly, anything that can help people to live, a life where they have shelter and food on the table, and can feed their kids and make sure their kids are fed and get a proper education, is obviously there's obviously nobody against that. What living wage means, I would have to obviously look into the details, how that differs from, the minimum wage that we have today. If it's something where you say, I'm going to support somebody who doesn't have a job, et cetera, et cetera. So the details would have to be looked into. But we have certain models in Europe where I already have that. And, I'm from there, and I'm a big fan of our social nets that we have in Europe. And I think we can adopt a few of those.
Okay, we're going to have a fun question. None of these questions came from the people. It's coming from my brain, but I want to know what all of you think. We had a really exciting opportunity today to listen to the Premier and Dr. Bonnie Henry present a very optimistic 4-step plan to reopening for BC. That includes the ability, potentially, depending on the matrices, to look at festivals and large gatherings later in the summer, assuming that this vaccination rollout works and we can actually have gatherings again of large numbers of people. So let's imagine a couple hundred people or something like that. What kind of activities would you like to see Terrace promote for fun and engagement of their people? What are you looking forward to having come back post-COVID? So this is not policy. This is, what are you looking forward to in terms of gatherings post-COVID and in a vaccinated world where we can come together? Jolie, over to you.
First of all, I want to see the music festival come back. That would make me really, really happy. Not just as a mother, because my kids are aging out of that whole thing, but as my kids age out, I can be now a relaxed participant and just enjoy without any stress and just loving all of it. So that would be important to me. Also, the engagement with people living rough on Wednesday nights, I'd like to see that come back, because I really think it was an important program for people to get together and come together and to see each other and to have some good times, because there's not a whole lot of good times for people that are living like that. So that's the other thing that I would like to see. And I would like to see the farmers market bustling, super bustling, the way it used to bustle. I want to see all that stuff come back. And I'd like to see all of us be able to have a parade and riverboat days and concert in the park. More concerts in the park, more different kinds of concerts in the park. However, as an audiologist, I would like things to be turned down a couple of notches, I have to say that. But however, I would love to see more of those, just community coming together and being a community.
That's awesome. Amandeep, what are you looking forward to doing as a community once COVID restrictions are lifted?
Honestly, I really miss Riverboat Days, and the first thing I would love to see is Riverboat Days Festival reinstated and celebrated as it was. Like last time, I took part in that as a volunteer, and I absolutely loved it. And I think we need to have that kind of joy, that kind of festival, mindset in our community, because it's been a long time we are inside our houses and disconnected from the community. So first of all, I think that should be the first thing we have to reinstate and perform. And other than that, we can have more cultural events like the one getting performed at the George Park. Also, as well as I think we should think about extending the farmer market span to late in the summer or early in the winter, so that we have those occasions to, get into the community, have some, that community sense for longer time. We can think about extending that farmer market span as well. That's what my take is, because that's regularly happening anyway, so we can just extend the time span. Thank you.
Good job.
Alex Petrella, I remember the year that you moved here and we had a Christmas market in downtown Paris.
Yes,
It
that's
was
right.
a big deal. It was
It's
really
just a little
cool.
cold and windy at times, so
It
it's not
was.
always easy.
There was a really big bonfire though, and it was
Yes.
a really fun event. So tell us what you're looking forward to post-COVID.
So post-COVID is, I would like to celebrate the people that got us through the pandemic in the community. The frontline workers, the nurses, the doctors, the first aid staff, everybody who was on the front line through the whole thing. I would like to see them on a stage and being celebrated, and have a music and band around it, and the community just being there and maybe shedding a little tear, because I'm pretty sure that's going to happen, right? It was a tough time, and it still is a tough time, and it's for many people. And I think an event like that to kind of bring closure and say thank you to those that were at the front line the whole time, I think would be a really, really cool thing to have, and really bring some positive thoughts into the community.
I love that idea. Dave, what are you thinking?
Well, great ideas for everybody.
You were on the ski hill almost every day this winter, creating
Not every day, but pretty much.
At my mountain co-op. But what do you see in terms of what you want to see happen once COVID's?
Well, what I'd like to put Terrace on the map for is a First Nations Arts and Cultural Festival. Sort of along the lines of the DACA Days in Whitehorse, which is a huge draw for the region and for the globe. We have some of the richest cultures here you can imagine, and from the Tahltans, the Tlingit, the Gitxsan, the Haida, the Haisla, the Tsimshian. It's a wide array of really strong cultures that I'd love to see all come together and celebrate. And can you imagine a music festival in the park that has the Snotty Nose Res Kids and Earthchild and maybe Tribe Called Red? People might travel around the world to see that kind of festival. It'd be a ton of fun, and I think we'll create an event that we can be really proud of. Okay,
I'm not running for council, but I'm going to share with you what I'm looking forward to too, because I cannot wait for live music to come back. And I've seen a lot of live music. I grew up in the city, saw a lot of cool bands in my day. But I think one of my top 5 shows ever was seeing Snotty Nose Res Kids playing at the Kitimat Hotel a couple of years before, the summer before COVID hit. And there were people from every village in the north that came to that show. Mm-hmm. And their album had just come out 2 days before that show, maybe 3 or 4. Every person in that room knew every lyric to every song. It was such an amazing experience, and I can't wait to go back to that. So I am looking forward to a post-COVID world. Fingers crossed it all works out according to Dr. Bonnie Henry's optimistic predictions, if we all continue to do our part. And high fives to all those people working at the Terrace Sportsplex walk-in clinic. I do know, a plug for Northern Health, that they're having walk-ins for the next few days for vaccinations, 12 to 17 too. So all you have to do is walk right in. And I did that last week with my 17-year-old son, and we were in and out within 20 minutes. It was amazing. So that's a plug for COVID vaccinations in Terrace. We're going to switch to infrastructure. I'm going to guarantee that we're out of here by 8:45 at the latest. We don't have a ton of questions around infrastructure. Jolie, I'm going to go to you first. What would you do to improve our roads in the city of Terrace?
I would do everything to improve the roads. I think that there are a lot of grants that are available, or grant funding opportunities that are available. That was how I believe the street along Monroe, along the schools, was done through a grant program. So those kinds of things can be improved. But like I spoke to about the inland port, that if we're going to have industry or industrial development, that I think that those industrial developments should have a fair contribution to the infrastructure of our city. It shouldn't always come from the taxpayers. I really don't think it should always come from the taxpayers. The little people should not always be paying for those things. And I think that we do need an overpass. We need another overpass. We need one for pedestrians to make things safe. So there's roads, but those are transportation. And it's been on our plan for years now to make an overpass there. And it's just not happening. We need to find a way to do that. And whether that's through granting, or whether that's through taxation, or whether that's through some other programs, it has to get done.
Thank you, Jolie. Alex Petrella, let's talk about Landfair Hill. Open topic.
Well, it's one of the main arteries to an area where we are looking for housing. There's lots of new developments going up there. And I think it would be a little bit unfair to the people that are building a house up there or wanting to build a house up there to tell them that now they have to go left or right around it and commute a little longer and, you know, emit a few more emissions, carbon dioxide to their vehicles. So I think it needs to be fixed in a sense and in a way that it is recognized as one of the main arteries up to the bench.
Dave Gordon, do you have any genius ideas around funding for these big projects? We know that they're expensive. We may not have all the money in the municipal coffers for it. How do you see solving the problem of erosion on our access hills? Access hills? Is it, you know what I'm talking about?
Which hills you're talking about? Yeah, they're both really important
for
us to deal with, and they both have. We need to work towards the long-term permanent solution on that one. I'm supportive of the city putting a bit of a stopgap measure to keep the hill going in two directions. Specifically for Landfair Hill, we need to complete the design on that, even if that's at our own nickel, and we need to start applying the property that was needed to do the rebuild of that hill. And then I think we're ready for the big grants that will come from the federal and provincial governments. It's really hard to grant the city the money if we don't know how much it costs, what it looks like, and we don't own the property. Those are all reasons to get turned down for a grant. So let's get those things fully in order to make that happen, and I think the funds will flow after that. And it needs to be grant-based. We don't have the funding from our taxpayers to do a $10 million rebuild of those hills. Thanks.
You're welcome. Thank you. Amandeep, I see your name, but I don't know if you're still here.
He stepped out for a moment.
Oh, did he have to step out for a couple moments?
Yeah.
That's okay. We're going to switch from infrastructure to a speed round on the topic of safety. It is an open topic. What would you do to improve safety in Terrace? Alex?
Safety, as in?
How would you improve safety in Terrace, specifically the downtown area?
I'd like to see more traffic geared towards the downtown area and have that area more accessible. Some of the ideas that I heard, I think, are going in the right direction to improve safety for the people that want to shop down in that area, fixing Brawley Square, taking the canopy down, for example. And then, having a visual person, one or two, that are safety and security, and you can see by what they wear that they are there. Until it's all solved, I think needs to happen. And hopefully that would be enough for the moment until we have fixed some of the infrastructure in that area that then, turns into a natural safety surrounding.
Amandeep, welcome back. We're talking about the topic of safety in the downtown area. Do you have any ideas about how to improve safety downtown for folks?
Thank you, Sarah, and I excuse myself for a minute. And about safety, as Alex said, we need to work on the the more visibility or more people in that area or city around. And as well as if we talk about crime, safety from crimes, we need to have more frequent visits from our CMP members, police, frequent police around the area, so that people can feel safe for the time being, until unless we get more traffic to that area, so that when there's more public, it's less safety issue in that sense, in the sense of crimes, I said. So we need to start with more frequent visits with the RCMP, so that people, as somebody mentioned before, that ladies or female, they don't feel comfortable going after 6 p.m. in the downtown. So if there's a police, our presence is more, then we can make them feel more comfortable or safe in the city. And I think we should start from that first, that a more frequent visit in and around the town from the police, and then we can work on the shop fronts opened and more people coming to the town, so that
Thank you, Amandeep. Your minute is up. I'd like to introduce Henry. He's my son sometimes.
Hi, Henry.
Say hello to Terrace, Henry.
Oh.
Hey, Henry.
And he's up here.
Scared him away.
Okay. Love this pandemic stuff. So on the topic of safety, Joel, what kind of ideas have you got to make our downtown streets a little bit more safe for folks?
Okay, so there's a few things that we all need to understand, that 80% of crimes are committed by 20% of the offenders. So not a lot of people know that. So that's where we need to focus things. So that we have to have a focused effort on crime and not just scattered here and there and putting out fires here and there. We need to have something focused, strategic, and we need to plan for it. I can tell you what other cities have done on this regard. So the city of Vernon has a community crime officer who is not RCMP, and that person orchestrates and organizes crime prevention. And again, that's a focus on the most prolific offenders. So you need to fix that first. The city of Surrey used an extensive consultant and engaged with partners, RCMP, social services, schools. They started programs in the schools to start people earlier so they're not moving into these situations where they are committing crimes. The city of Prince George did it well. With these pilot projects, Simon Fraser did a study before and after, and they found that 40% of the repeat offenders had reduced. So we can't just be here putting out fires all the time.
Yeah, I hear you. Dave, what are your thoughts on this topic?
Well, as I mentioned before, let's drive positive traffic into the downtown. That's going to take a bit of time to do. Businesses can support by having good lighting and keeping their businesses in good shape. I'm not a huge fan of downtown security. A couple of years ago, the TDIA and the city partnered on security guards in the downtown. Last year, we had part-time bylaw officers. Tonight at council, they're debating whether to put another $54,000 towards downtown security. My experience with security is they tend to just sort of move people around with a soft stick, and you end up having the folks, move from a bus stop to the back of a building and then around the block and back again. We've probably spent $150,000 or $200,000 as a community on downtown security just in the last 3 years. I think we need a new approach that involves less uniforms and maybe some social support workers working in the downtown. We need to try different approaches, and taking a criminal justice approach to everybody in the downtown. That's thanks.
Thanks. It's a huge topic. Thank you guys for that. We are at 8:40. I said we'd get out of here at 8:45. And we have how many minutes for closing remarks? Just one, right? Is that right? 1 minute, 1 minute. Yes, 1 minute for closing remarks. Am I right, Michelle? 2 minutes. We got 2 minutes. Okay, we might go over by 3 minutes, you guys. 4. So in our reverse order from the beginning of the night, Alex Petrella, you get to do your closing remarks. But before we do that, I want to thank all of you for putting your names forward. It's not easy to put your names forward for public office, and I really 100% think that it is a hugely important service to our community. I don't think that any other level of government has the impact that we see physically that municipal politics does on us in terms of garbage collection, streets, the stability of the hills, infrastructure, economic development, sidewalks, all of those things, they all fall under the umbrella of municipal politics. So thank you all for putting your names forward and for being with us tonight. Alex Petrella, I'll get you to kick us off with your closing remarks. Henry's really excited to hear what you have to say.
Yeah, hi Henry. Thanks, Sarah, and thanks everybody on this panel tonight, and the other candidates, and you, Michelle, and Tom. We touched on so many topics, and they're all relevant and they're all important. We have limited resources. We have staff, sometimes overworked, etc., etc. If I would get elected to council, there's one thing that I certainly will and can do, and that is to have a dialogue and to open a dialogue. As I say on my lawn signs, better together is my slogan, but because I believe in dialogue and communication. I don't know everything. Nobody knows everything. So we can only find good solutions if we open the door and talk to people, talk to our neighbors, talk to the professionals that are working in safety or in health about the issues at hand. I invite them to the table, and that's something that I will stand for. A diversity of thought is something that I have learned to not only believe but really push for within my professional career, because we have learned that diversity of thought really brings us better results. And this is something that I would advocate for on council table, and round that off with my international business experience, and help the city, to go through some of the pitfalls that are going to lie ahead, and the challenges from these large scale investments in the region, and how we can tap into it and turn it into something positive, so that we have that community that we all fell in love with, which is, I want to live here and grow my family. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Alex. Amandeep, we're happy to hear your closing remarks. You have 2 minutes.
Thank you, Sarah. And hi, Henry, once again. I hope you're listening to me as well. And thanks everyone for arranging and coming here, having a good time. And my closing remark, I request City that at least come for the voting. Don't stay at home, and vote whoever you feel or seem fit for the role. And whoever among us will be elected will work for benefiting the society of the Terrace. And we all are determined to make city better in terms of economic growth or infrastructure or support or whatever the issues we think we have in the community. So please come forward and vote, because we rely on you. And if I'm getting elected, or when I get elected, I will prefer you guys at the forefront, and your opinion will matter. I won't impose anything which I say. I'll think about the people and ask them to bring their ideas so that I can be their voice on the council and present their ideas on the table, so that we can have a healthy discussion and diverse voices. And so that we have the outcome, whatever the decision is, the outcome is, it has the factor or the bits from the people of the city, what's benefiting them. That's what my idea of being a council member, and my motive will be. And thank you very much for giving me opportunity to be here again. And hi everybody once again, and we'll keep seeing each other, I'll say, in the future as well. It's just not the election. I think being a close-knit community, we will see each other and we'll welcome each other's idea. And yeah, that's what I think is. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you, Amandeep. Next up, we have Dave Gordon. You've got 2 minutes, Dave.
Thanks, Sarah and Henry. And thanks, Alex, Joelle, and Amandeep for your thoughts and considerations of the issues of importance to our community of Terrace. Terrace has a great deal of challenges as a municipality. We lack the industrial tax base that we need to maintain our infrastructure in a sustainable way. Our downtown is fraught with petty crime and vagrancy, and we struggle with our relationships with the peoples that have been here since time immemorial. There's much work to do. However, there's so much to be thankful for and to build upon. We have clean air and abundant clean water, the very foundations of life itself that so much of the world really struggles with. Let's embrace our natural environment as a core value for our community and for those that will cross the globe to experience what we have. Let's make sure that future industry in our community does not unduly compromise these environmental values. We have extraordinary arts and culture heritage, alive and thriving with the First Nations peoples of the region. Some of the world's best artists live and practice in Terrace, yet we have little to show locally for this incredibly rich heritage. I'd like to see us fully embrace the opportunity to celebrate and showcase this potential. We have a small and well-connected community. In contrast to urban centers, we know each other and thus are accountable for our words and actions. Have a positive and well-articulated vision of the community we can grow to be, and I've been working as a volunteer for several years to bring this vision to reality. So if our community chooses to elect me as city councillor, I'll work towards the vision I've described tonight. I can't do it alone. I hope you'll join me in making our community welcoming, inclusive, and vibrant. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Dave. And Jolie, you get the last word this evening. Well, you almost get the last word. I always like to talk at the end, so you're stuck with me for a little bit, but you get the last candidate word for tonight. So you've got 2 minutes.
I'm just happy my mic is on, so I'm a step ahead already. So I've also had a vision for our city. I've had it for a really long time. I've just been really busy. So now I've got more time and I'd like to move our city forward. I would like to see a safe, comfortable, welcoming city with an economy that is running smoothly with fewer hiccups and disruptions. I'm an urban Indigenous woman with strong ties to my Indigenous communities and to other Indigenous communities around us. And we need to engage with them. We need to engage with our own people. They are our own people. You know, we're all one people. And so we need to engage with our Indigenous people and bring to life Section 35 of our Constitution and bring to life Bill 41 so that we are actually leading in that charge to have 22% of our population is Indigenous as opposed to 5% of the population of the province. We can't ignore that anymore. I'm a person that will listen well. So if you have something to say, we can work with that. I will challenge the status quo. So I'm not going to sit and wait for things to happen. I'm a collaborator, I'm a team worker, but I also don't like to stand and watch things that are wrong happening continue to be happening. So we need to move things and change things and move them forward. I would like to see our city moving forward, growing into a bright and safe place. I think we live in paradise. And we need to live like we live in paradise. And that includes making the city beautiful and wonderful and all the things that should be. We can't keep ignoring problems. We can't keep ignoring people. We can't keep ignoring the problems on our streets. We can't keep shuffling them out of sight. We need to address these problems head on. We need to lean into difficult situations and work on solving those problems ahead of time. This is our home, and I ask you to vote for me as the best candidate to represent all the citizens of Terrace for City Council. Everybody needs a voice in our city, from people who work in the community, people who work outside of the community, and the people who rely on our services. Everybody needs a voice here.
Thank you very much. I'd like to thank all of our candidates, volunteers, and our Facebook followers for joining tonight. A recorded version of the forum will be available on the City of Terrace website on the election information page. So big thanks to them for sharing that information through their website. The Chamber will be sharing that as well. And I'm sure all of us will take to social media to share that when it's available. Mail-in voting will be available now and has to be returned no later than 8 p.m. Oh, I've got the wrong date. It's a Saturday, March 6th. But that was like 2 months ago. Is that, I don't even know when.
Saturday, June the 5th.
Saturday, June 5th, not March 6th. June 5th, you have until June 5th. To request a mail-in ballot, you can go also to the city's website. Advance voting will be available at the Terrace Sportsplex multi-purpose room. You can't click your tongue while I'm talking. Sorry. Kids are so fun. Advanced voting is available at the Terrace Sportsplex Multipurpose Room on Wednesday, May 26th and June 2nd between 8 a.m. and 8 p.m. General voting is also at the Terrace Sportsplex on Saturday, June 5th between 8 a.m. and 8 p.m. For more information, you can refer to the City of Terrace's website at www.terrace.ca. And just as a personal note, by-elections don't have great voter turnout. So I really hope that all of your amazing ideas can attract a lot of people to come to the voting polls. It's incredibly important to have a new perspective on council. I thank all of you so much for your words and your time today and your perspectives. Thank you to Michelle and the Chamber. Thank you to Tom for hosting this tonight, and to the City of Terrace for hosting it on their website. We made it before 9. I'm not early for anything, so this is a miracle. And Michelle, do you have any last comments, or Tom?
No, I just want to, on behalf of the Terrace and District Chamber of Commerce, thank you, Sarah, and all of you for running in this by-election. We look forward to seeing the results after the 5th of June, not March. And we just want all of you to take care. As we've said, if your question wasn't answered today, please reach out to any of the candidates individually and ask those questions and get your answers. Tom, anything you'd like to finish off with?
Just beautiful thoughts. You all come from such diverse backgrounds. I think some things we've seen here do show how much our community, how much our world has changed. It is, you know, just the faces I see 20 years ago, we would not have this crew sitting here with this background and these ideas. Finally, words I heard a lot through this call were communication, reconciliation, and also just working together. So unfortunately, only one of you can win when this finishes, but please, you have amazing ideas. Just because you're not on council doesn't mean you can't be involved. And I look forward to us all moving our community forward. Good luck, everybody.
Good night, everybody. This is the end.